Commander Jake Morrison stood in the vast chamber of the Galactic Council, his blue uniform bearing the weight of humanity's desperate hope. The room stretched before him like a giant cathedral, with floating platforms holding representatives from 12 alien species. Each platform glowed with different colors, creating patterns of light that hurt his human eyes. Behind Morrison, Ambassador Lisa Chen held a thick folder of documents. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped the papers that contained Earth's formal request for help. She had spent 3 sleepless nights writing the plea, choosing every word carefully. Now those words would decide if humanity lived or died. The chamber was silent except for the soft humming of alien technology. Morrison looked up at the council members floating above him. The Netheri were clouds of glowing gas that moved like slow storms. The Zephyrians resembled giant insects with wings that buzzed constantly. Captain Ryan Burke waited in space above the planet, sitting in the command chair of the human ship Defiant. The ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels surrounding the planet. Through the view screen, he could see council ships that were 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with technology that Earth's scientists could barely understand. Burke spoke into his communicator. "Jake, you're clear to begin. The whole fleet is listening." Morrison nodded, though Burke could not see him. He stepped forward to the center of the chamber where a beam of light marked the speaking position. His voice echoed in the vast space. As he began to speak, "Members of the Galactic Council, I am Commander Jake Morrison of the human race. I come before you today not as a conqueror or a traitor, but as someone asking for help. My people face complete destruction, and we cannot survive alone." A low sound came from the Valeth platform. Their leader, a crystal being called Counselor. Breck spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "Human Morrison, present your evidence. The council will listen." Morrison activated a holographic projector that Ambassador Chen had prepared. Images filled the air above him, showing the horror that had come to human space. The first image showed New Tokyo, a beautiful city world with gleaming towers and parks. The second image showed the same world 3 days later. Nothing remained but gray dust and twisted metal. "This is what the Devourers do," Morrison said. "They are machines that eat everything: metal, stone, plants, people. Everything becomes part of their swarm. They learn from every battle, adapting faster than we can develop new weapons." More images appeared. The agricultural world of Haven's Rest had fed 5 human colonies. Now it was a dead rock stripped of even its atmosphere. The mining station at Kepler's Point had held 50,000 workers. The Devourers had consumed it in 2 hours. Lieutenant Amy Foster's tactical recordings played next. Now the young officer had been one of only 12 survivors from the battle at Haven's Rest. Her voice was steady, but tired, as she described how human weapons became useless after the first few shots. The Devourers learned from each hit, adapting their armor and shields faster than human gunners could adjust their aim. General Pete Williams had signed the casualty reports that Morrison showed next. Entire fleets had been destroyed trying to slow the Devourer advance. The heavy cruiser Manhattan had lasted for minutes. The battleship Texas had managed 7 minutes before being torn apart. Each ship that fell made the Devourers stronger and smarter. Dr. Helen Brooks had run the computer models that predicted Earth's future. Her projections showed on the chamber walls like a countdown to death. The Devourers would reach Earth in 2 months. The human homeworld had stronger defenses than the colonies, but the calculations were clear. Earth would fall in less than a day. "We have fought with everything we have," Morrison continued. "Our ships, our weapons, our lives. But we are not strong enough. The Devourers adapt too quickly. What worked once never works twice. Need help from people who have fought them before." Counselor Vrex's crystal body flashed with different colors as he communicated with the other council members. The conversation happened too fast for human ears to follow, filled with sounds like breaking glass and rushing wind. Crystal being spoke again. "The Devourers have attacked Council space only twice in 10,000 years. Both times, we destroyed them through superior technology and careful planning. But humans are different from Council races. You expand too quickly, you fight too violently. Your methods disturb the balance we have maintained. Morrison felt his heart sink, but kept his voice steady. We expand because we grow. We fight because we must. But we also help others and build new things. If you have the power to stop the devourers, please share it with us. We will pay any price. The insectoid Zephyrian leader buzzed loudly before speaking. Humans have existed in space for only 200 years. Council races have maintained galactic peace for 100 centuries. Your species threatens that stability. You make alliances too quickly and trust too easily. Other young races see your success and demand the same freedoms. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, unable to stay silent any longer. What freedom? Or the freedom to exist? The freedom to protect our children? How does our survival threaten your peace? A being made of living metal spoke from another platform. Peace requires order. Order requires rules. Humans break rules to solve problems. This creates chaos. Chaos destroys peace. Morrison realized the council had already made their decision before he spoke his first word. The images of destroyed human worlds meant nothing to them. The death of millions was less important than maintaining their perfect system. If you will not help us fight the devourers, at least give us weapons or ships. We will face them alone if we must, but give us a chance to protect our people. The council members exchanged more rapid communications. Colors flashed and strange. Sounds filled the chamber. Morrison waited, knowing that these few moments would decide the fate of his entire species. Counselor Vrex finally spoke for all of them. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity is too young to receive advanced technology. Your expansion is too rapid and your methods too unpredictable. Giving you powerful weapons would destabilize the galaxy. Council will not provide military aid to the human race. The words hit Morrison like physical blows. Around the chamber, other council members signaled their agreement. The vote was unanimous. 12 ancient civilizations with the power to save humanity had chosen to watch them die instead. Ambassador Chen's folder of carefully written documents fell to the floor as her hands went numb. All those words, all those carefully chosen phrases, all those sleepless nights meant nothing. She looked up at the floating platforms with tears in her eyes. You will regret this decision, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. When other young races face extinction, they will remember what you did here today. They will remember who helped and who turned away. And if humanity somehow survives, we will never forget who abandoned us when we needed help most. Council security moved forward to escort the human delegation from the chamber. Morrison walked with his head high, but his heart felt like lead in his chest. As they reached the exit, he turned back to look at the council members one final time. Ask for help because we believed in working together, he said. You have shown us that we can only count on ourselves. We will remember this lesson. Outside the chamber, Morrison activated his communicator to contact Captain Burke and the waiting human fleet. His message was short and simple, but it would change everything. Prepare for siege, he said. We stand alone. The journey back to Earth began immediately. As the Defiant pulled away from Nexus Prime, Morrison watched the Council ships through the viewscreen. They remained in perfect formation. Maintaining the order, they valued more than human life. Admiral Steve Parker was waiting for Morrison's call when it came. The head of Earth Defense Command listened to the report without interruption. When Morrison finished, Parker was quiet for a long moment. So they said no, Parker finally said. Complete rejection, Morrison confirmed. Consider us too dangerous to help and too young to survive. We're completely on our own. Parker's voice was grim but determined. Then we better get ready to show them what humans can do when they have no choice but to fight. The call ended, and Morrison sat back in his chair. Through the viewscreen, he could see Earth growing larger as they approached home. Somewhere, behind them, the Devourer swarm continued its advance toward humanity's birth world. In 2 months, the machines would arrive. When they did, they would find humanity ready to fight a battle that would prove the Council wrong about everything. Admiral Steve Parker stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, watching as his world transformed into something it had never been before. Giant screens showed the construction happening across the planet. Every factory that once made cars now built weapons. Every shipyard that once launched cargo vessels now produced warships. Every research center that once studied peaceful technology now focused on one thing: how to kill machines that could not be killed. The change happened faster than anyone thought possible. Within 2 weeks of Commander Morrison's return from the Galactic Council, Earth looked like a different planet. The blue and green world that had been home to billions of peaceful people now bristled with defense platforms, weapon batteries, and the constant movement of military construction. Dr. Helen Brooks had barely slept since hearing about the Council's rejection. Her laboratory buzzed with activity as hundreds of scientists worked around the clock. They studied every piece of Devourer wreckage that had been recovered from the fallen colonies. Each fragment told them something new about their enemy, but the picture that emerged was terrifying. Dr. Brooks explained to Admiral Parker during one of their daily meetings. They share information instantly across their entire swarm. If one Devourer learns how to defeat a human weapon, they all know it within seconds. Our normal tactics are useless against them. Colonel Nick Davis was in charge of moving people away from Earth. The evacuation ships launched every hour, carrying civilians to the outer colonies where they might be safer. But Davis knew the truth that nobody wanted to say out loud. If Earth fell, the outer colonies would not survive much longer. The Devourers would hunt down every human world until nothing remained. Captain Ryan Burke walked through the shipyards orbiting Earth, amazed by what he saw. The Defiant was being rebuilt from the inside out. Workers had torn out the comfortable crew quarters and replaced them with weapon systems. The ship's cargo bays now held experimental missiles that Dr. Brooks' team had designed. Even the ship's kitchen had been converted into an ammunition storage room. "She won't be pretty anymore," Chief Engineer Tony Garcia told Burke as they watched the modifications. "But she will hit harder than anything we have ever built. The question is whether hitting hard will be enough." Garcia was working miracles across the human fleet. Cargo ships became mobile weapon platforms. Passenger liners received armor plating and missile launchers. Even small pleasure craft were fitted with whatever weapons they could carry. The human fleet was growing, but not in the traditional way. Every ship was different, carrying whatever weapons could be mounted on its hull. Captain Paul Mitchell commanded the heavy cruiser Resolute, which had become a testing ground for Dr. Brooks' most experimental weapons. His crew had learned to operate systems that changed configuration every few hours. Nothing stayed the same for long because the Devourers would adapt to anything they encountered twice. Commander Kate Sullivan led the fast attack ships that would form humanity's first line of defense. Her squadron practiced maneuvers that made no sense by military standards. They flew in random patterns, changed direction without warning, and used weapons in ways that their designers never intended. The goal was not efficiency, but unpredictability. Dr. Brooks called her new approach the Chaos Protocol. The idea was simple, but revolutionary. Instead of trying to build better weapons, they would build weapons that worked differently every time. Instead of perfecting tactics, they would perfect the art of having no consistent tactics at all. The Devourers adapt by learning patterns. Dr. Brooks explained to the gathered military leaders, if we have no patterns, they cannot adapt. We must become as random and unpredictable as possible. We must embrace chaos as our greatest weapon. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Rogers was selected to train the first Chaos Squads, elite units that would fight on the ground if the Devourers reached Earth's surface. Her soldiers learned to change their equipment every day, to follow plans that were written by random number generators, and to fight in ways that defied every principle of military training. Sergeant Carlos Ruiz had studied the recordings from the fallen colonies more carefully than anyone else. He noticed that the Devourers struggled most when fighting in close quarters. The machines were designed for space battles, not for hand-to-hand combat with opponents who fought without logic or predictable patterns. "They expect us to fight like the Council races," Ruiz explained to his squad leaders. "Organized, efficient, following proven tactics. But humans do not have to fight that way. We can be wild, unpredictable, and completely illogical. That confusion might be the edge we need." The weapons factories worked day and night to produce the new equipment. But these were not normal weapons. Each missile carried a different type of warhead, chosen randomly from dozens of options. Each laser cannon had settings that changed automatically every few seconds. Each ship carried a mix of weapons so strange that even their own crews did not know what they would fire until they pulled the trigger. Engineer Garcia created the most unusual addition to the human fleet. He took old cargo ships and filled them with containers of different materials. Some containers held superheated plasma. Others contained clouds of metal fragments. Still others were filled with recordings of human music, voices, and sounds that might confuse devourer sensors. The idea is to create as much sensory chaos as possible, Garcia explained. If we can overload their ability to process information, we might create opportunities for our other weapons to work. Captain Mitchell's Resolute became the testbed for the most extreme Chaos Protocol weapons. His ship carried missiles that would detonate at random times, energy weapons that fired in patterns generated by gambling devices, and even speakers that would broadcast human poetry during battle. The crew learned to operate in controlled chaos, never knowing what their own ship would do next. The training was unlike anything in military history. Soldiers learned to ignore their instincts and follow plans that seemed designed to fail. Pilots practiced flying in formations that changed every few minutes. Gunners learned to aim their weapons using techniques that included coin flips, dice rolls, and even random word generators. Commander Sullivan's fast attack squadrons pushed the Chaos Protocol to its limits. Her ships would approach enemy positions. While playing different types of music, each ship broadcasting a different song, they would fire weapons in rhythm with the music, creating attacks that followed no tactical logic but might confuse enemy sensors trying to predict their movements as Earth's defenses neared completion. The long-range sensors began detecting the approaching devourer swarm. The enemy fleet was larger than anyone had feared. Millions of mechanical entities moved through space in perfect formation, their collective intelligence growing stronger with every light year they traveled. Admiral Parker called the final strategy meeting in the underground war room. Every commander, every squad leader, every ship captain was connected by video link. The room fell silent as Parker began to speak. In 3 days, the Devourers will reach our outer sensor perimeter. In 1 week, they will be fighting for Earth itself. We have spent 2 months preparing for a battle that nobody thinks we can win. The Galactic Council abandoned us because they believe we are too primitive to survive. Parker paused, looking at the faces of the men and women who would lead humanity's last stand. These were not the elite warriors of ancient empires or the perfect soldiers of advanced civilizations. They were ordinary humans who had chosen to fight for their species' right to exist. We are going to prove them wrong, Parker continued. Not by becoming better than our enemies, but by becoming something they cannot understand or predict. We are going to fight this battle in the most human way possible, with courage, creativity, and complete disregard for the rules that say we should lose. Commander Morrison, now in charge of Earth's orbital defense platforms, watched the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy. The Devourer swarm moved with mechanical precision, each unit in perfect formation. They expected to face an organized defense using predictable tactics and conventional weapons. Instead, they would encounter something that had never existed before. A military force designed around the principle of controlled chaos, led by a species that had learned to turn their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. The countdown had begun. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what humans could accomplish when they had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The first shot of the battle for Earth came from Captain Paul Mitchell's heavy cruiser Resolute as it engaged the Devourer advanced scouts at the edge of human space. Mitchell watched through his view screen as 3 enemy machines approached in perfect triangular formation, their black hulls gleaming with absorbed starlight. All weapons, fire at will, Mitchell ordered. But his weapons did not fire in any pattern the Devourers could predict. Some guns shot immediately, others waited random amounts of time. The missiles launched in groups of different sizes, each carrying warheads chosen by dice rolls made seconds before firing. The Devourer scouts tried to adapt to the incoming fire, but their processing systems struggled with the chaos. One scout's shields configured perfectly to stop plasma bolts just as a kinetic missile struck its unprotected hull. Another scout hardened its armor against explosive warheads. Moments before a beam weapon sliced through its weakened energy barrier, Lieutenant Amy Foster, now serving as Mitchell's tactical officer, watched the enemy ships spin out of control as their adaptation systems failed to keep up with the random attacks. "They are trying to learn our pattern," she reported, "but we do not have one for them to learn." The 3 Devourer scouts were destroyed within minutes, but not before transmitting their battle data back to the main swarm. The information they sent was useless. The mechanical hive mind tried to process tactical data that made no sense, weapon patterns that had no logic, and battle plans that seemed designed by madmen. Captain Kate Sullivan's Fast Attack Squadron encountered the second wave of Devourers 6 hours later. 12 ships approached the enemy while broadcasting 12 different songs at maximum volume. The enemy sensors, designed to detect communication patterns and tactical signals, were overwhelmed by a mixture of classical music, rock anthems, and children's lullabies. "Chaos Protocol Alpha is active," Sullivan announced over the communications channel that was playing a jazz saxophone solo. Her ships began their attack run while maintaining perfect synchronization with the music. They fired their weapons on the beat, changed direction during musical crescendos, and even performed barrel rolls during drum solos. The Devourer formation tried to respond to the attack, but their tactical computers could not separate the weapon signatures from the musical chaos. Energy bolts that should have been easily detected were masked by trumpet blasts. Missile launches coincided with cymbal crashes, making them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Sergeant Carlos Ruiz listened to the space battle reports from his position in Earth's primary defense bunker. His Chaos squads were ready for ground combat, but he hoped the space defenders would stop the enemy before any Devourers reached the planet's surface. The mechanical creatures were deadly enough in the vacuum of space. On solid ground, with cover and concealment, they would be even more dangerous. Dr. Helen Brooks monitored the battle from her underground laboratory, watching as her Chaos Protocol proved effective against an enemy that had never been defeated before. Her computer screen showed the confusion spreading through the Devourer network as each encounter produced data that contradicted everything they had learned about human warfare. "They are trying to find patterns in our chaos," Dr. Brooks reported to Admiral Parker. "Their collective intelligence is working overtime to process battle data that makes no logical sense. We are giving them more information than they can handle." Engineer Tony Garcia's converted cargo ships joined the battle as the main Devourer fleet arrived in Earth's outer system. His vessels looked like ordinary freight haulers until they began dumping their unusual cargo. Containers filled with superheated plasma created thermal blooms that confused enemy sensors. Metal fragment clouds reflected sensor beams in random directions. Recordings of human voices, from opera singers to crying babies, filled space with acoustic chaos. The Devourer main fleet moved in perfect formation toward Earth, millions of mechanical entities advancing with the precision of a clockwork mechanism. But as they encountered Garcia's chaos containers, their formation began to waver. Ships that relied on constant communication with the fleet mind found their signals jammed by broadcasts of human laughter and song. Captain Ryan Burks rebuilt. Defiant led a formation of 20 ships in the most desperate gambit of the battle. They implemented Chaos Protocol Beta, which called for ramming attacks, where the timing of weapon detonation was determined by random number generators operated by crew members with no military training. "Remember," Burke announced to his fleet, "we are not trying to survive this attack. We are trying to create maximum confusion for minimum cost. Every second the enemy spends trying to understand what we just did is a second they cannot spend adapting to our next move." The 20 ships charged directly at a Devourer formation that outnumbered them 50-1. But instead of following predictable attack patterns, each ship behaved according to random instructions. Some ships fired all weapons and then rammed immediately. Others flew through enemy formations without firing, then detonated their entire ammunition supplies at random moments. Burke's Defiant survived the chaos by pure chance. emerging from the battle with its hull scarred but intact. Behind him, the Devour formation was in complete disarray. Dozens of enemy ships had been destroyed by attacks they could not predict or counter. The survivors were trying to rebuild their formation, but their tactical computers were struggling to process. What had just happened? Commander Jake Morrison watched the space battle from Earth's orbital defense platforms. The massive weapons installations had been designed using Chaos Protocol principles, with each platform carrying a completely different mix of armaments. Some platforms specialized in energy weapons that changed frequency every few seconds. Launched missiles with warheads that were selected by lottery systems as the Devourer fleet pushed closer to Earth. Morrison prepared to implement the most extreme version of the Chaos Protocol. Every defensive platform would begin firing using targeting data generated by gambling addicts, random number generators, and even computer programs designed to make mistakes. The first Devourer ships to reach Earth's immediate vicinity encountered defensive fire unlike anything in their database. Weapons that should have missed their targets by wide margins somehow scored direct hits through pure chance. Energy beams that followed no logical targeting pattern found gaps in enemy defenses that careful aim would have missed. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Rogers received the alert she had been dreading. Despite the chaos in space, some Devourer units had managed to reach Earth's atmosphere. Her Chaos squads prepared for ground combat as the first enemy landers began their descent toward the planet's surface. "Remember your training," Rogers told her soldiers as they took their positions. "Change your weapons every few minutes. Follow no plan for more than 5 minutes. If something seems like a good idea, do something else instead. We win by being impossible to predict." The first ground battle began in the ruins of what had once been a peaceful suburb. Rogers' soldiers engaged the Devourers using tactics that defied every principle of military science. They fired weapons while running in circles, threw grenades behind themselves while advancing, and even attacked the enemy while singing popular songs. Sergeant Ruiz led a squad of close combat specialists against a group of Devourers that had adapted to resist every conventional weapon. But they were not prepared for humans who fought with crowbars and kitchen knives, who attacked while reciting poetry, and who used hand-to-hand combat techniques that seemed to have been invented moments before use. The mechanical creatures, designed for logical warfare, could not process opponents who fought without reason or consistency. Their adaptive systems overloaded as they tried to counter fighting styles that changed faster than they could analyze them as the battle raged across Earth's surface and through its orbital space. The tide began to turn. The Devourer swarm, which had never been defeated, found itself facing an enemy that could not be understood or countered. Their collective intelligence, their greatest strength, became a weakness as it struggled to process the chaos of human warfare. Admiral Parker watched the tactical displays with growing amazement. The impossible was happening. Humanity was winning. A battle that every expert said they could not survive. Not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through the simple act of refusing to fight the way their enemies expected. The Devourer fleet began to retreat, carrying with them data that would confuse their kind for generations to come. They had encountered something new in the galaxy, a species that made war itself into a form of art, beautiful in its complete unpredictability. The news traveled faster than any ship could fly, within days of humanity's impossible victory over the Devourers. Every corner of the galaxy buzzed with stories that seemed too incredible to believe. The Galactic Council members, sitting in their perfect chambers on Nexus Prime, listened to report after report with growing disbelief. A primitive species had accomplished what the Council's advanced civilizations could never do. Humanity had not just survived the Devourer attack. They had won so completely that the mechanical swarm fled into deep space, carrying confusion instead of tactical data back to their hidden bases. Admiral Steve Parker did not waste time celebrating the victory. While Earth's population cheered in the streets and the media called him the greatest military genius in human history, Parker was already planning humanity's next move. The galaxy had rejected his people when they asked for help. Now humanity would never need to ask for anything again. Construction crews that had built Earth's defenses in weeks now turned their efforts toward a different goal. Massive shipyards appeared in the outer system, each one larger than anything humans had ever attempted before. Engineer Tony Garcia oversaw the construction of facilities designed not for defense, but for projecting human power across the galaxy. "We are not building a fleet," Garcia explained to the engineers working around the clock. "We are building a statement. Every ship that comes out of these yards will tell the galaxy that humanity is no longer the species that begs for help." The first ships to emerge from the new yards looked nothing like traditional human vessels. Dr. Helen Brooks had designed them using advanced chaos technology, but these were not weapons of desperation. These were instruments of controlled power. Ships that could do things no alien engineer could understand or duplicate. Captain Ryan Burke stood on the bridge of his new command, a vessel that dwarfed his old Defiant in every way. The ship had no official name because it changed its identity every few days, broadcasting different call signs and flying under different flags. The confusion this created among alien observers was intentional and complete. "Every time someone thinks they understand our capabilities," Burke explained to his crew, "we change everything they think they know. Our strength comes from being impossible to predict or categorize." The first test of humanity's new position in the galaxy came sooner than expected. The Zephyrian Collective, one of the Council species that had voted against helping humanity, decided to claim a human colony world under what they called Galactic Stability Protocols. 3 Zephyrian fleets arrived at the colony of New Arizona, expecting the humans to submit to superior technology and ancient authority. Commander Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the human response fleet to New Arizona. His ships arrived flying a simple message broadcasted on all frequencies. "We asked nicely once." The message was transmitted in 12 different alien languages, assuring that every species in the galaxy would understand its meaning. The Zephyrian commander, confident in his technological superiority, demanded that the human colony surrender. Immediately, his ships outnumbered the human fleet 3-1, and Zephyrian technology had been perfected over thousands of years. The insectoid aliens had never lost a battle against a younger species. Admiral Morrison's response was delivered with calm politeness that somehow made it more terrifying than any threat. "You have 10 minutes to leave this system. After that, we will demonstrate why the Devourers fled from us instead of adapting to our attacks." The Zephyrian commander refused to retreat, ordering his fleet to attack the human ships. What happened next became a legend that spread throughout the galaxy. The human fleet engaged using Chaos Protocol tactics so advanced that Zephyrian battle computers suffered complete system failures trying to process them. Human ships fired weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Not because they actually did, but because they operated according to principles that no logical mind could predict. Energy beams that should have missed their targets struck with perfect accuracy through pure chance. Missiles that flew in seemingly random patterns somehow found every gap in Zephyrian defenses. Captain Kate Sullivan led a squadron of ships that attacked while broadcasting what appeared to be random noise, but was actually human music played at frequencies that overloaded Zephyrian sensors. The aliens had excellent hearing, which became a weakness when exposed to the chaotic beauty of human jazz improvisation. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes. Not a single human ship was destroyed, while the Zephyrian fleet retreated in complete disorder. Their commander sent a message to the Galactic Council that would be quoted for years. "These humans do not fight. They create controlled madness and call it warfare." Word of the New Arizona incident reached every inhabited world in the galaxy within weeks. The species that the Council had dismissed as too primitive to save had humiliated one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations without apparent effort. More importantly, they had done it while following no recognizable military doctrine. Captain Paul Mitchell, now commanding a fleet of his own, began visiting worlds that the Galactic Council had abandoned or ignored. These were species considered too young, too aggressive, or too unpredictable for Council membership. They were exactly the kind of people that humanity understood. Mitchell's first stop was the world of Keth, home to a species called the Corvani. These bear-like creatures had been denied Council membership because they solved problems through direct action rather than lengthy debate. When Mitchell arrived, he brought an offer that no Council member had ever made. "We do not want to rule you," Mitchell explained to the Corvani leadership. "We do not want to change your culture or tell you how to live. We want to offer you something simple: friendship, trade, protection from anyone who tries to hurt you because you are different." The Corvani had heard promises before, but never from a species that had just defeated both the Devourers and a council fleet in the same year. When Mitchell demonstrated human technology by having his ship change its entire configuration while in orbit above their planet, the Corvani leadership was convinced. Within months, the Terran Alliance began to form. Species after species joined the growing confederation, drawn by humanity's offer of protection and respect. Each new member brought unique capabilities that human military doctrine integrated through advanced MS-Chaos protocol techniques. Dr. Brooks found herself leading research teams that included scientists from a dozen different worlds. Each species approached problems in their own way, but humans had learned to turn that diversity into strength. Alien logic combined with human creativity produced technologies that amazed even their creators. The Rathi, a species of flying reptiles, contributed flight techniques that human pilots adapted for space combat. The Molan, silicon-based creatures from high-gravity worlds shared mining technologies that Garcia used to build bigger and better shipyards. The Vex energy beings, similar to the Council's Netheri, taught humans how to manipulate power fields in ways that seemed like magic to other species. General Pete Williams, now leading Alliance military development, created a doctrine that would define human expansion for generations. Alliance forces did not conquer territories or impose governments. They protected members from external threats while allowing complete internal autonomy. "We do not fight to rule," Williams explained to his commanders. "We fight to protect the right of different species to exist and grow in their own ways. But we protect that right with overwhelming force applied in ways that make our enemies afraid to test us again." The Galactic Council watched with growing alarm as the Terran Alliance expanded. Species that had been loyal Council members for centuries began asking questions about why they needed Council permission to make their own decisions. Younger species that had never been offered Council membership flocked to join the Alliance instead. Councillor Vrex called for emergency sessions to address what Council members called the human problem. But the crystal being's perfect logic could not find a solution. The Council had maintained galactic peace by excluding anyone who might disturb their ordered system. Humanity had created a different kind of peace by including everyone who wanted to belong. Admiral Parker received regular reports about Council activities from Alliance intelligence networks. The ancient civilizations were afraid, but they could not act directly against humanity without proving that their peaceful order was maintained through threats and force. "They created us," Parker told his staff during one planning meeting. "They turned their backs on our plea for help. They forced us to become strong enough to survive alone. Now we are too strong for them to control and too popular for them to attack." The galaxy was changing in ways that no one had predicted. The species that had once begged for help now offered help to others. The Council that had once decided the fate of entire civilizations found their authority questioned by those they claimed to protect. A new order was emerging, built not on ancient tradition, but on the simple idea that every species deserved respect and protection. Admiral Jake Morrison stood once again in the vast chamber of the Galactic Council. But everything had changed. 5 years ago, he had entered this room as a desperate man begging for help to save his dying species. Today, he returned as the representative of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The chamber looked the same, with its floating platforms and colored lights, but the atmosphere was completely different. Where once there had been confident dismissal, now there was barely hidden fear. The 12 Council species that had rejected humanity's plea for aid now faced the consequences of that. Decision behind Morrison stood Ambassador Lisa Chen, no longer carrying documents asking for help, but holding a formal ultimatum from the Terran Alliance. The folder in her hands contained the terms that would reshape galactic civilization or tear it apart completely. Admiral Steve Parker waited in orbit above Nexus Prime, but he was not alone this time. The Alliance fleet that surrounded the Council World was larger than any force ever assembled in galactic history. Tens of thousands of ships from 47 different species moved in formations that followed the advanced Chaos Protocol. Making their true capabilities impossible to assess, Captain Ryan Burke commanded the first Chaos fleet from the bridge of his flagship. A vessel so advanced that Council scientists could not even identify its basic operating principles. His ships changed configuration every few minutes, displaying technology that seemed to violate known laws of physics, but was actually the result of controlled randomness applied to engineering problems. The Council members floated on their platforms. In uncomfortable silence, as Morrison began to speak, his voice carried the same calm tone he had used 5 years earlier, but now it held the weight of absolute authority backed by overwhelming force. Members of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Alliance. 5 years ago, I stood in this chamber and asked for your help. You refused. Today I return not to ask for anything, but to inform you of the new reality you helped create. Counselor Vrex's crystal body flickered with nervous energy as he responded. Admiral Morrison, the Council recognizes that humanity has achieved unexpected success. We are prepared to discuss limited membership options for your species within the existing galactic framework. Morrison's smile was polite but cold. You misunderstand the situation, Counselor. We are not here to join your council. We are here to offer you the opportunity to join a new galactic order based on equality rather than ancient privilege. The chamber filled with shocked sounds as the council members realized that humanity was not seeking admission to their exclusive club. Instead, the humans were offering to replace the entire system that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. Ambassador Chen stepped forward and activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The images showed the current state of galactic civilization, but from a perspective the Council had never seen before. Dozens of species had joined the Terran Alliance, creating a confederation that already controlled more territory than the Council itself. The Alliance now includes 47 species, Chen announced. Each one was rejected by your Council as too young, too violent, or too unpredictable. Together, they represent the majority of intelligent life in the galaxy. They have chosen cooperation over exclusion, protection over control. Captain Kate Sullivan's diplomatic fleet maintained position throughout Council space, demonstrating Alliance reach and capability. Every major trade route, every important system, every center of galactic commerce now hosted Alliance ships that moved according to patterns that no Council strategist could predict or counter. Dr. Helen Brooks, now Director of Alliance Technology, had perfected chaos science to levels that seemed impossible. Alliance ships operated using principles that Council scientists could not understand, much less duplicate. Every vessel carried technology that worked through controlled randomness, making conventional countermeasures useless. The holographic display showed the economic reality that worried the Council most. Trade between Alliance worlds had grown to levels that dwarfed traditional Council commerce. Species that had been economically dependent on Council worlds for centuries now found prosperity through Alliance partnerships that offered better terms and greater respect. Engineer Tony Garcia's construction fleets had built fortified worlds throughout what had once been Council space. Each Alliance stronghold served as a beacon for species seeking alternatives to Council rule. The message was clear. There was now a choice between the old order and something completely new. The Alliance offers membership to all species based on a simple principle, Morrison continued. Every intelligent race has the right to exist, to grow, and to make their own decisions about their future. We do not require perfection or ancient wisdom. We only ask that members respect the same rights in others. Captain Paul Mitchell, now commanding Alliance expansion forces, had spent years visiting worlds throughout Council space. His reports showed a galaxy ready for change. Younger species resented Council restrictions that limited their development. Older species questioned why they needed Council permission to manage their own affairs. The economic data that Ambassador Chen displayed told the story of the Council's declining influence. Alliance trade networks offered better prices, faster transport, and fewer restrictions than traditional Council routes. Worlds that had traded exclusively with Council members for millennia now found alliance merchants offering superior deals. Counselor Vrex attempted to maintain the Council's traditional authority. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. The stability we provide cannot be replaced by your chaotic methods. Order requires leadership from those with wisdom and experience. Morrison's response carried the quiet confidence of someone who held all the advantages. Your peace was maintained by excluding anyone who might disturb it. You created stability by denying growth and change. The Alliance has created a different kind of peace, one based on strength that protects rather than controls. The truth behind Morrison's words was visible in the orbital displays that every Council member could access. The Alliance fleet surrounding Nexus Prime demonstrated military capabilities that made Council forces look primitive by comparison. Ships that operated according to Chaos Protocol principles could defeat any organized opposition through sheer unpredictability. General Pete Williams had established Alliance military doctrine around a simple concept: overwhelming defensive capability. Combined with complete respect for member autonomy, Alliance forces did not conquer or occupy. They protected and supported. But with such devastating effectiveness that no rational enemy would test their resolve, Lieutenant Colonel Beth Rogers, now training Alliance special forces from dozens of different species, had proven that chaos protocol techniques could be taught to any intelligent race. The galaxy's most effective military units now operated according to principles that the Council's ordered minds could not comprehend or counter. The ultimatum that Ambassador Chen presented was simple and non-negotiable. The Galactic Council would restructure itself to include all intelligent species as equals, or the Alliance would withdraw from galactic civilization entirely. This withdrawal would take with it the majority of galactic trade, the most advanced military technology, and the loyalty of species that had found freedom under Alliance protection. You have 7 days to decide, Morrison announced. The Alliance will not wait longer for an answer. We learned patience when we begged for your help and received nothing. We will not practice that patience now that we hold the power to reshape the galaxy. The Council members exchanged rapid communications filled with panic and confusion. Perfect order had been challenged by chaos itself, and they had no framework for responding to threats that operated outside their logical systems. Counselor Rex finally spoke for the Council, his crystal voice filled with resignation. The Council accepts the need for restructuring. We propose a new galactic assembly that includes Alliance representation alongside traditional Council members. Morrison's smile showed no triumph, only the satisfaction of completing a long and difficult task. The assembly will include all species as equals, with decisions made by democratic vote rather than ancient privilege. The age of Council rule is over. The age of galactic democracy begins today. As Morrison and Chen departed the chamber, now transformed into the first meeting hall of the Galactic Assembly, they carried with them the knowledge that humanity had completed an impossible journey. They had risen from desperate supplicants to the architects of a new galactic order, built not on the charity of advanced civilizations, but on the strength of human determination and the chaos of human creativity. The galaxy entered a new age, where humanity, once deemed too primitive to save, had become the force that other civilizations turned to for salvation. The Council had turned its back when humanity faced extinction, but humanity had risen by force alone and emerged stronger than those who had abandoned them. In the years that followed, children throughout the galaxy would learn the story of how the youngest species in space had taught the oldest civilizations that true strength comes not from perfection,